Has everybody had a great day at PyCon? Have the past 3 days been good? Is anyone staying a little longer? Awesome. I'm super glad to hear. We've worked super hard to make this happen. There are bunches of people that we'll talk about later that made that possible. But first, we're going to welcome to the stage Catherine Devlin. Catherine is a Python community addict since PyCon 2004. The founding chair of PyOhio in Columbus, Ohio, teaches Python intros in a variety of informational settings to others, and sometimes accosts strangers on the bus to tell them that Guido loves them and has a wonderful plan for their computer. Without further introduction, Catherine Devlin.
Very good, thank you. Oh goodness. Let's back this. Oh, I'm spoilering myself already. Okay. Hello, PyCon! I am so happy to have you here! Welcome to Small Data, and even though you've been here already for 3 days or maybe more, I can't help but say it. Welcome to Ohio! I hope you're having a fantastic time. I hope that many of you are going to be able to stay for sprints or at least to hang around Ohio in general. I hope that you're already thinking, how can I possibly go an entire year before coming back to Ohio for another great community-led Python conference? Well, you are in luck because PyOhio happens the last weekend of July. The CFP closes on Tuesday. We'll do a little CFP jam during the sprints, or you can do it on the plane home. Also, check for community Python conferences around you, regional conferences. If there aren't any, look around for your own personal Eric Flair. There are probably people who will help you get one going. It worked for me. So yes, I live in Dayton, not far away. I did not have to fly. This was great, but it did deprive me of the educational opportunity afforded by in-flight magazines, which would have taught me great technical information like data is the new oil, and I am really jazzed about that. I can hardly wait. So really, though, all they mean is that the field is becoming professionalized. Big data is a thing. Data science is a real thing. And for the most part, that's really good. Professionalization means that we're getting better techniques, better tools, better standards. People are getting paid for it. That's always nice. And salaries are great. However, when we look at our power to change the world, we need to ask a question. What are we changing the world into? Because who uses big data? Everyone can, but for the most part, it's big institutions. Do those institutions use it for the public good? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But even when they are using it for the public good, the public rarely understands what's being done. They've heard that big data is a big thing, but it's not something they have any contact with. So are we in danger of becoming data janissaries, the servants of a ruling class? Are we going to help a dominant caste continue to dominate, make a stratified world even more stratified? Professional can mean good, but sometimes professional means the opposite of amateur. And amateurs are good, because amateurs are how the world in general stays in contact with what we're doing. Amateurs tear down the curtain that separates professionals from everybody else. Without amateurs, we have a mystery and alienation. So do we have any fans of hospital food here? Okay. Hospital food is not generally popular, and some of that is for objective reasons of quality, understandably, but I think some of it is also subjective, because if a friend cooks you dinner when you're sick and brings it over, it's the sweetest thing in the world. It just touches your heart. But if you're sick and the hospital staff cooks dinner and brings it to you, you don't care. And why is that? Well, a lot of it is because you're at the end of a pipeline. You have no contact anywhere up the pipeline. You don't know the people who made it. You have no contact with them. You don't have any feedback toward them. You're just the end of this institutional process, and so it makes the food taste bad. We're in some danger of having a hospital food situation going on with the world's data. Most people know that big data is powerful, it's mysterious, they keep hearing about it from all these in-flight magazines, that it helps to control the world, but it's something they know nothing about. It's wizardry behind the curtain. That's a very alienating feeling. It makes you feel like the world you're living in is not your own. Now, I work for one of the biggest institutions on Earth. Okay, it probably is the biggest institution on Earth. I'm a federal employee of the US government. Hello. Specifically, I work for 18F, a great digital agency that helps the rest of the federal government get the same techniques and technologies into its software building and buying that all of you know and love. We're kind of a sister agency to the USDS, separated at birth, you might say. In particular, 18F is chock full of Python. You should consider doing a tour with us. It's been the best experience of my professional life. And I have to apologize here to all the non-Americans. I'm going to give a talk almost as if America is the world. I hate to do that. America is not the world. But hopefully you can map it mentally to the situation in your country, which is probably awfully similar. And in fact, a lot of you have agencies somewhat similar to USDS or 18F. Having said that, this is not an 18F talk. These are my personal views. They have not been reviewed or approved by anybody in the US government. I am on vacation. I am on my own dime. I have gone rogue. If my supervisor asks, you haven't seen me. I have gotten to work on a lot of great open data projects in 18F where we take data that darn well should be in front of the public and we get it meaningfully in front of the public, such as the Federal Election Commission's database, the FBI's Crime Data Explorer, and most recently USASpending.gov. If you want to know where your tax dollars are going, we've got that information for you with a decent interface. But even better than that, the part I'm most proud of, is that we have a well-documented API. So you can pull that stuff down. And if you want to know about Secret Service spending on golf carts in Florida, it's in there. But open data can't just be pushed. It also has to be pulled. We need people out there to grab it and take it and use it, or else we won't be able to go back to the people allocating our budgets and say that, yes, the public cares about this, yes, the public is going to use this. That's true for government. It's even true for businesses publishing their data. Everyone wants to know that that circuit is going to be completed and that the data is actually going to be put to use. I'm not here to convince you to trust your government. I don't think you should trust your government. I want you to manage your government because we're your employees. Employees need your feedback, your involvement, your engagement, your oversight, your management. But too many people are disengaged from their governments and worse, from their societies overall. They've given up on the idea that they can understand what's going on and have an impact. That is a cynicism and an alienation that we have to do something about. People think of cynicism as a defense against being manipulated. It isn't. Cautious skepticism is a defense, but cynicism, just knee-jerk assuming the worst and being blind to evidence, is a defense mechanism that ironically makes us easier to manipulate. Because cynicism breeds disengagement, despair, passivity. It divides us, it neutralizes us, it conquers us. Now, there are many causes of cynicism, and I don't mean to say that big data is the only or the biggest cause at all. In fact, there are groups specifically fostering cynicism to make us easier to manipulate. But I do think that the alienation of people due to their unfamiliarity with the new database universe is a contributor to our growing cynicism. And so that is the part of the problem that we, as Python people, are best equipped to deal with. How are we going to deal with that? Let's talk about chickens. This is where my eggs come from. There's a surprising number of backyard chicken farmers in this room. I've always been surprised by that. Yeah, go chicken farmers. All right. This is not my backyard, but we do buy these from a neighborhood backyard farm. And that little bit of direct personal contact with my food supply, I could ask these chickens names, I haven't, maybe I will next time, makes me a little more mindful, a little more knowledgeable, a little more engaged with my own food supply. And there's an entire movement around small food and local food that includes, yes, backyard chicken farms, also organic farmers, gardeners, farmers markets, community-supported agriculture, all creating small-scale, local alternate channels to the mainstream industrialized commercial food industry. It's not going to replace that industrial food industry, but it supplements a little bit of it with a little bit of food, more importantly, with a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of engagement, a little bit of caring. It helps connect people to their food supply and democratize the food supply just a little bit. And that little bit does make a difference. So, imagine, behind every farm, behind every home, rows full of fresh, ripe, organic, sustainably and humanely raised lists and dictionaries, integers, and decimals. Imagine a small data movement democratizing people's use of data a little bit like the small and local food movement. If people, not a majority of people by any means, but lots of people, more people than now, gain personal experience in gathering data and processing it, even in small and simple ways, can that make them more knowledgeable and more engaged in a society that is increasingly data-driven? I don't know, so let's do the experiment. Now, I am not talking about everybody spinning up their own Hadoop cluster and pointing scikit-learn at it. I am talking about basic stuff, pulling a little data off the web, processing it in basic Python ways, combining it with other data from other sources to make something more meaningful, and then representing it out to the world. Stuff that can be plausibly done, or at least started on, within a few hours of your hello world. Who's going to be interested in that? Well, we've always got students in schools. They're a captive audience. And Jessica McKellar's keynote on that, I'm going to refer you back to that. If you haven't seen it, that's why God gave us PyVideo. Watch it. There's also groups of people who are going to be especially interested, even more so than the general public, although, of course, your seatmate on the bus definitely needs to hear about it. But journalists, small business people, activists, and organizers of your local groups are going to have a special reason to be interested. Local government, this guy is my hero. Your local government could use data more and better, but those employees probably don't have the budget or the expertise without a little bit of help from you. If you're tuning out thinking this is an education talk, you are not allowed to tune out. Everybody here has a role. More will follow on that later. What kind of projects can a data amateur really do? What can a person do without becoming a programmer as such, just dipping a toe in? I don't have an exhaustive list. I have an imagination. I'm going to throw out some ideas from my own imagination. There are thousands more imaginations here. All together, I think we can come up with some great ideas. And the one that jumps out at me screaming is CSV. Yeah, CSV! Yeah. They say that about 2/3 of the species on Earth are microbes. I think that about 2/3 of the data on Earth is in spreadsheets. And what is a spreadsheet but a CSV generator? Almost everybody's life is touched by spreadsheets. Yes, exactly. A lot of people sweat away a terrifying proportion of their lives clicking and copying and pasting and dragging away on spreadsheets. And yet, when you dump it to a CSV, not only can you easily load it into Python, but you can see exactly what's going on. There is no mystery there. You could look it straight in the eye and say, aha, you are made data, and this is what I am going to do with you. There are plenty of other packages to deal with spreadsheets, but what I like about CSV is both the great transparency of it, and also it's in the standard library. So you can get somebody hooked on processing data with Python before you have to wade into the treacherous waters of, let's get you set up with pipenv, let's teach you how to install third-party packages. Get them hooked first, then have them deal with that. Email. Most people feel overwhelmed by their email. It was really the first form of information overload. And every email provider provides advanced search, provides advanced filters, and that's great, but that is never going to match the precision and the power of a script that people write themselves for their own purposes. They can get control of their overflowing email inbox that has been intimidating them since 1997. Granted, I haven't gotten control of my inbox, but you can teach them to. It's a huge source of personally relevant data for most people. When big data makes the news, they're often talking about social media. And that's a big part of people's lives. So it's easy to get people's imagination running on how they could process that social media in their lives. Which of my friends share a certain interest? Which of them share an interest with each other but don't know each other? Who's announced their plans for the weekend? Can I hitch her along? Who's heading to Pi, Ohio this summer? Who's actually a bot? Are there any hours of the day when I'm more likely to make misspellings or threaten foreign countries? I'm only speaking personally here. When do I threaten foreign countries? Yeah. Twitter's API, incidentally, is really not very user-friendly, especially for beginners. It wants you to authenticate even if you just want to do read-only stuff. Kind of weird. Kenneth Wrights has written a new package to, and if you know Kenneth, I can stop speaking right there and you're already Googling it, to gather Twitter information without having to authenticate, much more beginner-friendly. In fact, I plan to shake this down during the sprints. If you want to take an hour or two away from your regular sprint, I think we can quickly knock off a little collector to scrape the PyCon Open Spaces hashtag and build a grid for next year, so you won't all have to crowd around that lovely Open Spaces board. All right, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So, hopefully that'll help for PyCon next year. More importantly, it'll help you get ready to show this to other people. Web scraping is basically getting data from sites that were not designed to provide computer-readable data, that were only designed with human eyeballs in mind. And this is important because a lot of data is only published this way. It's tricky, but fortunately there are some good libraries to help us do it. And web scraping can be especially important for getting the worldwide part out of the web, for finding local resources, because your local resources, local businesses, local organizations, local governments often publish in this human eyeball only format on a variety of web pages scattered here and there, not very convenient for people to find. You can pull this together and make local directories, local event calendars, or for that matter, topical. You can help people find this information that people threw onto the web years ago, and they don't know why anybody isn't finding it. APIs, I'm talking now web APIs, are awesome. It's easy to consume and use data when it's provided in web APIs. That is, after all, why web APIs even exist. So it's ironic that we kind of conceal it behind this intimidating acronym. APIs sound like something only programmers know how to do, but it's actually the easiest way to get information off the web. So we need to show this to people. We need to show them how easy it is to pull down data from APIs and make use of it, and show them how to find interesting APIs from governments, from social media, from vendors, from all sorts of places. There are entire open data hubs that we can point them to and they can start finding data from. And as a Govie, I have to point out data.gov, woohoo, go data.gov. Actually, there are so many that we kind of need directories of the directories. Some of the nicest directories take the form of simple curated lists on GitHub. You might want to web search around for that before you start. When you point people to these curated lists, though, or the less curated ones, it's actually best to give them some more specific directions, or they can just be overwhelmed by the quantity. So give them a couple of suggestions, maybe ask them what they're interested in, point them that way. They might just tune out when they see 1,000 different APIs. The open data census is an especially nice form of a directory of APIs, because this is a grid where cities are in rows and particular types of data are in columns. Now, people can use the census to find kinds of data they're interested in if it's been filled in, but it's volunteer-driven, and volunteers can help fill the grid in, which is great practice for digging into your city's open data, and it's great exercise for a data hunter. And finally, once they've gotten this data and done some, again, basic Python transformations, you'll want them to present it. Don't try to make them a full-fledged web developer unless they want to go that way. I'm thinking static site generators are awesome. They're easy, low barrier to entry. Show them how to slam together a markdown or restructured text page and put it up on something like GitHub Pages. No fuss. There's a great website called thenewdynamic.org, which is good for information about static site generators. This may include some visualization. There are a ton of Python visualization libraries. It's almost like the old days when there were a ton of web application platforms. I'm going to point out specifically AltairViz. I just discovered it recently. I think it's very beginner-friendly. That's where I would go to point beginners, although there are so many of them, and a lot of the folks who made them are in this room. Good on you. Leaflet.js is a great way for presenting data in map form, incidentally. Unfortunately, there's a Python wrapper around Leaflet called Folium. As an example of a project that uses some of these techniques, in Dayton, we have a lot of properties that have been surrendered to the city for failure to pay taxes, and you can get them for about $2,500 plus some bureaucracy. However, it used to be that in order to do this, you had to first get a spreadsheet, take items from the spreadsheet, cross-check them against a separate website from the county, then look those addresses up on a map, all before you can even start figuring out what's going on. So we weren't seeing a lot of uptake, so that wasn't great. So Code for Dayton, which is the local Code for America brigade, did that work for people. We grabbed the spreadsheet, we consumed it as a CSV, correlated it against the county website, and presented it as a leaflet map so that you can use this map to find your new home. And if any of you want to carpool from your new home in Dayton to PyCon 2019, just give me a ping. The Open Knowledge International has a set of value stories that can also jog your imagination. Most of them focus on big data applications, or at least medium data applications of open data, but they can at least get your imagination going. Just read through them. It's very lovely and inspirational. And your local Code for America brigade is full not only of people with more ideas, but also potential volunteers to help make it happen. Some of whom are brand new coders, some of whom aren't coders yet, but you can help show them how easy it can be. And again, I'm referring you to a past PyCon keynote, in this case, Catherine Bracy's. So, I promised you don't have to be a teacher. And you don't. What can you do without being a teacher? Well, to begin with, you can teach. You don't need to have a job role as teacher to teach. You can teach in all sorts of informal circumstances. One-shot workshops, at your library, through local groups, to local organizations, through groups like Girl Develop It. Actual teachers love guest presenters. This year I went to a high school and gave them a little one-shot on how to consume the Studio Ghibli API and get information about anime movies. It was a blast. Aw. And good on Studio Ghibli, incidentally, for making a very user-friendly API. The Data Carpentry Foundation teaches classes that are, I think, at a little higher level, but they have a nice curriculum you could mine. They also have a really nice program for training their instructors. And so they're helping bring more people into contact with data skills. You can write. And in fact, one of the better books on this subject has been written, but there's still room for more books. Yes, great book. And this is also a great foundation for a curriculum. Blogs still exist and are still a great way to publish information if you can write it up nicely, that other people point to it. I'm still finding great blog posts that help me through. Also, publications still love articles. In fact, you probably have in your city a business publication and even an IT publication that are always hurting for articles. You can tell sometimes they're publishing some really crummy stuff. Give them something better to publish. Write up something about data handling in Python. They'll love it. I'm going to shout out Julia Evans' wonderful Unix cartoons. Yes, yes. Okay. Hers are not about data handling specifically, they're about Unix, but they should inspire you about how effective communication can be when it's kept informal and very fun. So don't get writer's block thinking that you're writing some kind of doctoral dissertation and it has to be formal and impressive. People don't read doctoral dissertations. People read cartoons like this. You can speak. You can speak here if you want, but here you're only preaching to the choir. There are all sorts of places where non-programmers could hear from you about how easy it can be to start manipulating their data. Professional groups, business groups, activist groups, all of them are out there, and frankly, most of them love to hear from new speakers. You can signal boost. With an awful lot of programming problems, half of the battle is finding the right package to use. And the other half is finding the right examples and tutorials to help you use that right package. So when you find something that's cool, tell people in person, blog about it, tweet about it. You're boosting the signal, you're helping others find it, you're lowering the barriers. So far, I've mostly been talking about increasing people's skills, but it's even more important to reduce what is demanded of people. And the first way you can make things easier on people is just by opening up more data. Wherever you work, wherever you volunteer, wherever you live, and wherever you vote, have they opened up all their data? You can be an informed voice explaining to them the advantages and the benefits of open data. So please lend your voice. You can take the code that we use to analyze data and make it easier. Improve the API, or make new wrapper packages with a simplified API, or make packages that wrap multiple other packages and ease the work of combining them together. Many packages are built with APIs that fit to the brains of the fantastic geniuses who wrote them and who don't mind the complexity. But it's so much better when the API fits the brain of a beginner who's only guessing about how to use it. So, find a newbie or be a newbie, keep track of their uninformed guesses about how things maybe work, and then see if you can make those wishes come true. You can write the docs, and yes, that is the name of a conference. You can join projects and write documentation for them, and you will be the most popular person there. Or just file documentation PRs. Every time you hit something that confuses you, see if you can make a PR out of it to clarify the documentation. If you could write up good examples about how to use a package, that can be some of the best documentation possible. Write it up, see if the project wants to incorporate it into the main documentation. If not, blog about it and have your friends point to it. You can answer questions. Sometimes a well-written Stack Overflow answer, thanks to the magic of web searching, can be some of the most read documentation of a project. All of this is helping people. Ignorance is precious. Never waste it. When you understand how to use a package, you don't remember anymore what it was like not to understand. So while your ignorance is fresh, take notes of your guesses, take notes of your assumptions. As you stumble your way through, take notes of what you stumble on, of what confuses you. And then when you make it to the glorious promised land of understanding, go back and see what improvements you can make to this API. See what improvements you can make to the documentation. And if it's too late, if you foolishly wasted your ignorance, then find a newbie and help them through and take notes as they stumble. And help the next newbie have a better API and better documentation. So we've talked about how to increase people's skills and how to make the code easier to use. There's a third aspect. You can make the data itself easier to use. And I want to shout out the Data Packages project, which lets you wrap data and metadata together into a format that other tools can use to make getting and downloading and importing data easier to use. It's not very well known yet. It really deserves to be. So signal boost for it. There's also a startup here at PyCon called Quilt that does a rather similar thing. So look up Quilt also. Again, so much data that is technically available is actually difficult to use. Availability is really not a Boolean. So it's more of a float, so you can bump up the value of that float. Now you should probably be asking whether I'm trying to sell you a Honeywell kitchen Minicomputer. That is, am I trying to give you a very technical, gee-whiz computing answer to a problem that is not a computing problem? And largely you're right. Most of the problem of an alienated society has nothing to do with computers, nothing to do with data. We can't help it. But I think a significant fraction comes from this big data alienation. And so we can take on a significant fraction of the problem. How are we going to do it? What specifically are we going to try to achieve with a small data movement? The first thing I think we can do is improve civic engagement. Because when you go to your city looking for data, you're engaging. When you nag them for data they haven't released yet, you're engaging. When you involve your neighbors, saying, hey, look at this data I found, let's analyze it together. When you point them to the results that you got. When you press for change based on the results that you got out of this data, you are involved with your city, you're building a sense of ownership and habits of participation in yourself and among everybody who is touched by it. Ethics in data science is a big topic all to itself, and data scientists are discussing it among themselves, but they shouldn't just be discussing it among themselves. The more people have experience in working with data, and with all the approximations and compromises that inevitably go into compiling data, the more people will be able to contribute their own voices to that conversation. A diversity of voices, and that will improve the big data ethics conversations in the future. We'll create smarter data consumers, just like with the eggs. Even when I'm buying store-bought eggs, I know a little more and I think a little more about those eggs because I've had some personal contact with them. Something similar can happen with data handling. Once people have even stripped a single spreadsheet and ripped that data out, they're thinking a little bit more about the data that's fed to them. We can create demand for open data. As I said before, open data producers need open data users. And by the way, when you use open data, it's a great practice to tell the people who produced it. Give them some feedback. Give them some applause. That becomes useful for them when they have to turn around and justify their effort in continuing to open data and to open more data. I know at 18F, every time we hear of people using data that we have helped to open, there's a little party. We love that news. As we make using open data more of the norm, and publishing open data more of the norm, we're going to create an expectation. If you found a can of food in the supermarket that did not have an ingredients list, you wouldn't buy it. Even if you had no interest in reading the ingredients, they would be violating a norm. You feel entitled to that ingredient data. I want to create that kind of sense of entitlement for data across all sorts of fields, everywhere possible. And I think we can strengthen local institutions. Near exclusive access to data handling skills has been one of the advantages that big and national and global institutions, both businesses and non-businesses, have over local ones. So breaking up that monopoly and bringing some of these skills to your local institutions, businesses, theater troupes, bowling leagues, garage bands, can help level out that playing field. All right. Well, I bet you're complaining that this is all well and good, but you haven't seen any cute pet pictures. And you're saying chickens don't count. Okay, fine, you mammalists, have it your way. This is Kimber. Yeah. Oh, okay. So Kimber's people are friends with Josh Corey. Josh Corey is a brand new Pythonista learning Python with the Dayton Dynamic Languages group. We have a weekly PyFry hangout. Alas, Kimber has food allergies, a ton of food allergies. Imagine going through the pet store, reading that long fine print on every dog food bag, checking for any appearances of any of these foods. Horrible. So, Josh comes to his friend's rescue. Josh says, hey, I'm learning Python, and that looks like a data problem. And Josh jumps on in. He actually found that the PetSmart webpage has ingredient data. So he scraped it and extracted ingredients lists and compared it to Kimber's lists of allergies and generated a list of safe brands so that Kimber's stomach could live happily ever after. There we go. We can help nucleate many more happy Kimber stories just like this. So go forth. Bring the people to the data and the data to the people. I hope you've had a fantastic PyCon. I hope that a lot of you can stay for sprints. Have safe travels or safe sprinting. I will see you back right here next year. Thank you so much.
All right, another round of applause for Catherine. I just threw him a curveball. We'll see. Oh, there we go. So I have bad news, which is that for many of you, this is the end of PyCon 2018. Most folks will not be staying around for sprints, and if you are, we'll talk about that shortly. But before we do, I just want to thank everyone who is here. It means so much that we all come together in this way, and that we learn and we share. And also, it just means a lot to me personally, so I wanted to say thank you for being here this year. You may have noticed yesterday, and I forgot to mention it, the city of Cleveland turned blue and gold last night, and it was pretty cool. So again, just thank you for being here from the bottom of my heart and from all the people involved in putting PyCon together. Some notes. Tonight at 6:30 at the Great Lakes Science Center is the closing dinner for PyCon 2018. If you have a ticket, take it with you. If you don't intend to use your ticket, you might want to find somebody who might want to use it. The food's already been allocated, and we don't want to see it go to waste. For introductions to the next 4 days of PyCon, which are the sprint days, the Sprintros, as Kushal and I named them this afternoon, will begin shortly. So these are the pitches from folks who will be sprinting over the next 4 days for their project. If you're interested in telling people about your project, Kushal will tell you how to do that. And I will make sure to remind you to stick around in this room after the close here. This is incorrect, not 25B. In 25C at 5:30 p.m., there will be an introduction to sprints. So if this is something new or you just need a refresher, consider stopping by room 25C for that intro workshop. Monday through Thursday in this convention center, rooms will be allocated for groups from all around the world to collaborate on their projects. We call those sprints here, and coffee and lunch will be provided. Last night, the PyLadies charity auction was held in the Hope Ballroom of the Hilton over there, and we just wanted to do some number stuff. So in 2016, the PyLadies auction raised $16,000 for the cause. In 2017, it raised $21,275 for the cause. And this year, in 2018, it raised an astounding $26,100. But wait, there's more. The Python Software Foundation did not see fit to have such a bizarre number dangling around and decided to round up to $30,000. So thank you to everyone who participated, and consider participating next year, making a donation, or coming and just throwing money at guitars and things. So this, again, is the closing of PyCon 2018, and PyCon 2019 is a little less than a year away. It will be held in Cleveland, Ohio again on May 1st through 9th, 2019. So a little earlier in May. Oh, by the way, that's here. A little earlier in May, so even more unpredictable weather is plausible. But that's a little ways away. In between now and PyCon 2019, back here in Cleveland, Ohio, there are numerous events occurring in our community and in our space. I'm just going to read them off. I have pages and pages. So dinner's at 6:30. There's the PyData series ongoing, DjangoCon Europe later this month, or in a few days, PyCon CZ in June, PyCon Londinium in June, SciPy, EuroPython, PyOhio, PyBay, the Flask Conf Brazil, PyCon Australia, EuroSciPy, PyCon UK, PyGotham, DjangoCon US, Python Brazil, PyCon Denmark, North Bay Python, PyCon Canada, and PyCon Colorado, a new conference next year. So that's a lot of numbers, or a lot of names. If you are a Python conference organizer, I don't have a link, but if you come find me, or you are good at Google, you can Google on github.com for the Python organizers organization, and there's a conferences repository there. That's where I got the list of conferences here, and we're considering some interesting things we can do. So if you organize a conference and you haven't heard of that repository, I'd recommend that you add your conference there. But generally, our conference, our community is composed of these conferences, and it's a time for us to come together and meet. And there are so many people who I wish were here, and for a myriad of reasons, it's not possible that everyone come to PyCon every year. And so joining these regional and other country-based conferences is a crucial part of our community in growing it and making it accessible to others. So perhaps consider organizing a conference or attending a conference that's closer to you. It really makes our community possible that we have a network that way. Oh. Okay. I got this from my mother, a very emotional self. And so, thanks. This is an immense undertaking, and it's done by hundreds of people over the course of many months. And occasionally, people step forward in a distinguished fashion. This year we had someone who was so kind and giving that they forfeited something that was offered to them for another in order to make this conference possible. So this year I want to make distinguish a single volunteer, Eric Ma. Eric, are you here? If you see Eric, say thank you. And we have something for Eric, and we'll provide it to him later. It's just a piece of paper. But it's just a significant contribution to making this conference possible. But it's not just one person. These are actually the pages and pages of people I have to thank. So I'd like to give a round of applause to the PSF staff, the bedrock of this conference. To our diversity and outreach chairs, our publicity chair and blog team, our accessibility chair, our program committee chairs and reviewers, to our volunteer incident responders, our tutorial chairs, our poster chairs, the people who ran the lightning talks, the financial aid team, the session staff chairs and green room staff, the sprint coordinators, the open spaces team, the PyCon Charlotte's team, the PyLadies Charity Auction coordinators and volunteers, the Education Summit chair and team, the Language Summit coordinators, the Startup Row facilitators, the captioning coordinator and captioning staff, to the tech, audio, and video staff, the young coders and educators, the 5K charity fund run coordinators,
the mobile guide coordinators, the swag bag head, the speakers, to the tutorial instructors, the poster presenters, the education summit speakers, the PyCon Charlist speakers, and to all of the volunteers on site who helped to stuff swag bags, who helped to distribute swag bags, who helped with young coders, who staffed the green room, who ran for speakers, who chaired sessions, who ran items at the auction, who worked the registration booth, and who greeted the tutorials. Thanks you so much, and thanks to all of you for being here at PyCon 2018. It has been an honor. If you are planning to stay around for the sprintros, hang out in this room. Kushal will be operating that in about 10 minutes, and that's it for the main talk days of PyCon 2018. I hope to see you at sprints.